that, they identified small rural departments that needed this assistance, and they were especially high risk of suicide and adverse mental health among law enforcement. That made us a good candidate for this, and we ended up getting it. So with that, we got the grant develop the peer support team. I'm not sure if many of you guys work on a local level with NAMI. We do, and NAMI has a woman who we worked with. She's a senior clinical director, and her husband's actually a sergeant at a department up in middle of Maine. She's done debriefs for 15 years with law enforcement. So she was the primary contact for us. And that was such a huge benefit, getting someone who's been there, done that, and was able to help us get the team off the ground. So we started that in 2020, got all these departments that were too small to have their own team. And the idea behind a regional team was that as if you guys have it, in-house teams, we just kind of found that some of the in-house teams were having a hard time functioning, and no one was really coming to them. And so the idea behind the regional team was that we would have that anonymity, that confidentiality of, we can pair a peer with someone they've never met before and probably never even heard of. And that went a long way for the start of the team and for the direction of the team. So the main idea behind that was that debriefs and one-on-one interactions would be done by peers who really didn't know each other, or that we had the benefit of choosing that. And we've seen that it's probably the best thing that I've seen come out of this is a regional team in the regional team part, as opposed to an interdepartment one. Again, not saying one's better than the other. It's just that confidentiality has helped us thrive, I believe. And it's taken away the familiarity that officers have with each other in their department. It's kind of hard sometimes if I'm gonna, talk to Jimmy, who I work with, and then I got to go on a call with him, and he knows that I'm going through some mental health issues. It kind of, you worry about the trust there. So we thought that we would try to eliminate that with this, and I think it's really worked. So for the beginning of the team, we got the grant. We put together a core group. It was the first 4 officers that applied. We put this core group. The core group's like the governing body of the team. They review applications and just anything that right now we're kind of working on an MOU with the county agencies, stuff like that. We review back and forth, and just kind of the governing body for the team. One of the first things we did with Hannah and with the core group was to form a team policy. Obviously, everybody loves policies in this job, so hey, you got to have one if you're going to do anything. So with that, it outlined the objectives of the team. It made us that we're a 24-hour responding team if needed. We do debriefs, we do individual, we do officer support, and we do referrals, among other things. We do a lot of one-on-one stuff, and we do a lot of department-wide debriefs. One of the other things we did was we created an application. So what we did, we put it on the application, just time served, the roles that you've held, your prior training, your availability, and we required a 3-year commitment. By the time, as you all know, any specialty, by the time you get your training up and running, you usually have half a year or something down. So we wanted a 3-year commitment. The core group would take those applications, we review them, and we vote on whether or not to accept that officer. As you all know, law enforcement's a tight-knit community, and everybody knows somebody who knows somebody. So with that, you don't want, we didn't want a bunch of people, that were maybe doing it for the wrong reasons. We wanted people that had a heart for this, that would do it for free. And we had the grant going, but obviously, if you have a heart for this type of a thing, then the monetary thing doesn't matter. So that's what we focused on, putting people on the team that had good reputations, that a few had some prior debrief or peer experience, and that's what we worked with. Right after that, we began recruiting. It was a difficult thing in York County. Like I said, it wasn't a known, this isn't really a known thing up here. It's something that's done infrequently. So kind of, breaking some new ground with this. It took several months, myself or others emailing or calling chiefs, getting officers, talking them through this, what's going to happen, what we're looking to do. And eventually we did get some recruits on that. So by September of 21, we had 7 officers, including the 4 for the core group, and those had been added to the team. Additionally, we've been recruiting clinicians. What we wanted for our model, we wanted peers on the team, but we also wanted to have a clinician at every debrief. We reached out to a couple that we knew, ran them through a vetting process, did an interview process with them. And the vetting process was, the main criteria for the vetting process is that they did not do fit for duty evaluations. Obviously, that's something we want our officers to feel comfortable, and everybody here, you hear fit for duty and you get a little red flag. So they could not participate in that. And we ended up getting the 2 initial clinicians who joined the team. They volunteer their time, and it's a great thing. They follow we follow the ICISF model, which we have tweaked a little bit over time, and kind of made it our own. We also have a chaplain for the team, and he volunteers his time as well. So shortly after that, the first training was conducted. We had the 11 officers go through, 2 clinicians and a chaplain, which was a good start to the group. That training allowed us to satisfy the main statutory requirements for confidentiality. So we got that behind us. So we got right to work, reaching out. In the beginning, it's kind of like anything that you do when you start something. We would hear about a critical incident and we'd reach out to the department. But at this point, we rarely do that. People are reaching out to us. So this kind of shows the growth of the team. Some other things that we did, that I created a reconnaissance form for a debrief. So if any of you do debriefs, you realize that sometimes people's idea of a debrief or net need for a debrief is way off from yours. With that, you have to gather a lot of information to successfully run a debrief. And in my opinion, it's one of the most important things you do. First thing we do with this form, we find the point of contact for administration, and I'll complete the assessment form. I look to get as much information as I can, goes along with the dates and times. One of the most important thing is the personnel who was involved and what their role was. We find that one of the most detrimental things in a debrief is to include people who were peripheral involvement and bring them in with people who are directly involved. It kind of shuts down the people that were directly involved when, the guy that was, watching traffic, keeping people from running the roadblock is complaining about how hard his day was, and, they were picking up bodies or whatever. So we try to really figure out what people's roles were and whether or not one debrief's needed, more than one, if one debrief's needed, and we can provide individual support for other people. The other thing that's important, that we find important, is we get the names of the people involved. As you know, law enforcement's a small community, so we don't want either people who know each other involved in the same debrief. We try not to do that. And oftentimes you have a lot of X's between, the fire department and the dispatch and police. So we try to make sure we don't, cross those people up. And it just seems to work out better. Others, smaller stuff that do with the recon form is determine the location, the time, and, try to get the requesting agency to provide refreshments, that type of stuff. So once I have all the information on that, then I take that and I try to put together the best team that we can based on their needs. Part of, and I'll get to this a little bit later, part of when someone gets on the team, I get all their specialties. I get their, some of their past history. If they've been in a shooting, if they've, if they have, SRT, something like that, that I compare that with the type of debrief that we're going to. And that has seemed to work out very well. So we do that. We usually, normal debrief consists of 3 peers, a clinician, and a chaplain if needed. One thing that I figured out, excuse me, is we always had a hard time communicating with iPhones and other phones. Could not get a group message that would not exclude people. So just for all of you guys out there, if I'm sure a bunch of you have heard of it, but we use the Signal app. The Signal app, it's encrypted and it doesn't boot people out, so it can handle large groups. So yeah, I went through about a year of trying to figure out how to keep everybody in a group that wasn't email that could have direct involvement. The other thing we do for a debrief when calling out, we have our regional communication center send out a page. So our people get an alert that there's a debrief coming up, go to the Signal app, make sure you check it. So that's another thing we do. Another thing that we did was we created a debriefing guide. And, again, I've talked to people on other teams and stuff. We've taken a bunch of our training and a bunch of our debrief training, and we've created a debriefing guide that we go by. It's like a 9-step thing that covers ground rules, the introduction, the factual narrative, thought narrative, that type of stuff. And then it goes into normalizing teaching. So with that, anybody can pick up that debrief and go through it. Any of our people that are trained. It's just a way to stay on track, and that's what we use. A clinician handles one section of that on normalizing and teaching physiological responses and that type of stuff. So I know Matt wanted me to touch on the Lemois grant. The grant was great for us. It worked great for us. It was easy to do. We used it obviously for training, setting up the trainings, food, paying instructors, paying overtime for people. With that, some of the things we did were created a survey. So every month the peers would complete a survey, whether they did a group debrief or whether they did an individual, and what resources they used. And it's just stuff that we could compile at the end of the grant to show the agencies the need for the team, which was very helpful. Another thing we did was we created a brochure, which Matt has. The brochure was done with the help of NAMI and a graphic artist we have on our team. That logo he put up earlier was created by the graphic artist for our team, and that's on the brochure. The brochure covers everything from common reactions, stress reactions, to some coping skills for all of that stuff. On there as well are team member names, and their phone numbers. So somebody can contact them directly. We explain to people you can do it anonymously, hit *67 if you don't want them to know who you are, but most people don't. Most people understand it's confidential, and that's the basis of the team, is confidentiality. Additionally, like I said earlier, on that is also team member specialties. So if I wanted to call somebody up and I've been in an officer involved shooting, I can be like, this guy was involved in a shooting, and maybe that's the guy I want to talk to based on what he went through. So we worked hard to use the grant money. There's obviously quite a bit. And we did a bunch of different debriefing styles, general peer support. We did a bunch of trainings. One incident that, and it's like anything in law enforcement, if you ask, you might have a shot of getting it. We had a critical incident, made national news, and we ended up doing 4 concurrent debriefs for that. And there was over 70 officers there. We ended up doing an admin debrief as well. So during that, there was obviously a lot of people around. We didn't have any team gear. So when we got done with that, we went to the managers of the grant and we're like, hey, this is our need. We weren't identifiable. People didn't know who to come to, and they allowed us to reallocate money. They don't allow you to buy swag, but they allowed us to buy team gear for the purpose of visibility and appearance. So it's kind of one of those things that we all get in the academy. If you write a memo to ask for something, you might get it. It's kind of the same idea with this. I guess is lesson I learned was doesn't hurt to ask, and for that it did well for us. Our team is equipped. We respond 24/7 with the paging system, and then the follow up with the app. We'll go anywhere. We've responded to scenes, to shootings. We've had a peer stay with the officer the entire time, and actually, one of the most recent ones, that officer has since joined the team because of the benefit he saw with that. Done dozens of debriefings, individual one-on-ones, and it's just, like I said, for an area, New England's, as I'm sure Seth and not sure many from New England, New England is, we think we're tough people. So, we're kind of hard nuts to crack. And getting through on this level with officers was challenging, but honestly, the reputation of the team has gone a long way, and people are now accepting of it. And officers that you're like, wow, I can't believe them, apply for the team after they've been through a debrief. So we're seeing that. Our debriefs often include all first responders. We'll do fire, rescue, dispatchers. Dispatchers are often forgotten, and they love it when we ask them. Usually, a lot of times, they don't have, a lot of the answers after the fact, and we as officers don't have a lot of the answers before we get the call. So that's a huge benefit in having them there. When we're done as a team, we have a post-meet debrief with the team. Just make sure everybody's okay. If any of you've done these, you know that they're pretty draining. If you do a debrief and you're invested, it's 2-3 hours, and by the end of it, you're kind of exhausted. You're mentally exhausted. You want to, be there for the officers. You want to have the answers, and taking on all of that, all of their trauma with their individual stories, is a lot to take on sometimes. So we debrief our own. We also do quite a bit of one-on-one sessions. So I'll have actually, most recently, I had a psychologist reach out to me, said, I've been working with this guy. It's not what he needs. He needs peer help. I took one of my people, put him on him, and the guy's still working with him. And it's making a huge impact, where he's kind of at a stalemate in with his psychologist, doing the right things, but it wasn't hitting that spot. A couple side effects of the team are, there has, since we've started and since we've done some of the debriefs, administration has realized they have a need for debriefs. We as a team, we try to only do basically road guys that are first responders, guys that respond to the call, obviously, detectives, stuff like that, but we try not to do any rank. We try to stay out of the office with this stuff. And we find that shuts people down. If me as an officer there, and then my sheriff shows up, I'm probably not saying much. So we try to keep administration out of it. But they still do have a need for that. And kind of one of the offshoots of our team since we've started is the need for theirs. And that has started the formation of an admin team. It has also spurred most recently a spousal team. So it's actually my wife and a local psychologist have formed a spousal team. They're having monthly get-togethers. They take a topic, they teach on it. It's not a complaint session about us, which is a good thing, because they'd probably still be there. But the group includes guest speakers. They focus on a variety of different topics. So that's kind of a cool side effect of not only seeing the need, but actually doing something about it. Our team, it's grown immensely. We've lost a few members to either retirement or people moving, but people fill right in. We're at 19 members right now. And as Matt was saying, some of our people have been received awards for this stuff, for life-saving awards, been asked to, do webinars, been asked to speak at conferences, several conferences. So, and we've at our most recent wellness conference we're at, I met up with a couple people from New Hampshire, from from Vermont, and walk them through how we formed our team, the team policy, everything that we've done, and have been a resource for them. So that's up to the grant. Post grant, like I said, the team is at 19 officers from 12 different departments. And I know I touched on that. I guess one thing I'd leave with you guys is I find that so important. Just, knowing, been an officer for quite a while myself, there are very few people in my department I would feel comfortable talking to. I'm a tough guy like everybody else, and I'd want to know that that's confidential and it's going to stay where it is. And, officers are worse than any gossiper there is. Just saying, hey, did you hear about this? Did you hear so-and-so did this? The news spreads fast, the text group spread fast. That's why we focus on confidentiality. You don't talk out of a debrief about these things, and one-on-one stuff stays between you. And I think that's shown through, that has come through, and that's why we have the reputation that we have. As I mentioned, we have, I don't think I did mention, but in that group, we have 2 retired officers as well. One retired because of cancer, which I didn't know if wanted to stay on the team. But for me, that's a huge asset. Someone who was a good officer and they've been through something that's possibly life-threatening and survived that, just an asset to have in case we have another officer that suffers from something like that. As I mentioned too, picking your people, it's so important. Our people are just tremendous amount of dedication, compassion. They answer the call. I've never had a debrief that wasn't staffed, that I didn't have enough volunteers for. And it just makes it so much easier. As of right now, we have 4. We have 4 psychologists or clinicians on the team. And again, these people are people that can charge $100, $200 an hour. They volunteer for the team. One of them has, since joining the team, has kind of veered out of private for civilians and has kind of turned into someone who's working with all the local departments, and it's been a huge asset. She's compiled a group of psychologists, clinicians in the area. She sends it out to us. So those are all people that have been vetted by her. It makes my life easier, and everyone has at their fingertips a clinician they can talk to. We still have the chaplain who volunteers his time, and one of the guidelines for the team are that we require 20 hours a year of mental health training and or covering debriefing topics. We hold quarterly meetings, cover team business, conduct training, allow the team to bond, relax together. As I mentioned before, we're working on an MOU. This is all post-grant. The grant ended at the end of August for us. So we obviously want to make this sustainable. The team has great momentum. So we're working on an MOU to just kind of outline what we do and try to just get a few requirements in return for the local departments. We've done a dozen of these debriefs. The team's increased the network, the resources. It's just shown that that need for mental health and law enforcement. And it's one of those things that was kind of just pushed back, into the shadows until recently, especially up in this area. And the conversations about mental health and the officers we talk to and we debrief, it's just become so much more open, more direct. So with that, debriefs have become a normal occurrence. We went from the only thing I knew we would debrief up until a few years ago, we would try to do an officer involved shooting, and that was it. And as you guys know, there are so many other things, whether it's one incident or cumulative things that pile on that need to. We do a lot of debriefs for child deaths. for really messy death scenes and stuff like that, that just when they reach out to us, we do the assessment and we go from there. So like I said before, another thing that's a huge benefit, we've gained a bunch of members from people who have been in debriefs. And I think that just speaks so much. That's our greatest recruiting tool at this point, is having an officer come in, see the benefits, sit in an emotional debrief, realize the good that it does, and says, you know what, I want to be part of that. So it's just mental health and wellness has become an emphasis and an awareness, and it's a priority for many of the departments around here. And the peer team, I think, has done so much to bring that about. So it's kind of what I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. I'll open it up to questions. Bob, I have a few for you, but I'll wait to hear from the group.
Okay.
You had in talking about buy-in from the top. So I was with the peer support program with the Connecticut State Police, and actually the executive director for officer safety and wellness at the memorial, Troy Anderson, is the one who started the peer support program within the Connecticut State Police. That was back in 2007. And so at the time, buy-in from the top, it was difficult. It was extremely difficult because a lot of it was definitely an older school thinking and approach to law enforcement, which I think those of us who have been in law enforcement for several decades were familiar with. That was sort of the environment that we grew up in, if you will. Over time, you had peer support members who came onto the team who then were promoted up through the ranks. And so I would say by the time 2022 rolled around, you had people now at the command level who were actually part of the peer support program when it had started. So buy-in wasn't an issue at that point. What obstacles, if any, did you have to buy-in being up in a small department where the whole concept was relatively new? And how did you overcome any obstacles to buy-in for the program?
Well, to get to what you're saying, as far as I know, there is one chief in this area that ever served on a peer team. So he was easy. He saw the need. He saw the need for it. I think what you're talking about, the culture has definitely changed with the advent of a lot of embedded clinicians for mental health for the public. Several departments around here have embedded clinicians that deal with the public. They go to mental health calls, they help officers with that type of stuff. It was, I think, a matter of, there's a huge focus on mental health in our country right now. And it was kind of directing that to us, of we deal with the same thing or worse than a lot of these people are dealing with. And we're just expected to smile and go to the next call. So it was between that and looking at recruitment and retention. I mean, obviously those things speak volumes to administrators who spend all this money to get someone up and running. They last 3 years and they're out. So we sold it as well under, if we can keep everybody's mind right, we can help them flush out some of this bad stuff, normalize what's going on. Then these people will be happier. They'll be more productive employees. They'll stick around longer. And then law enforcement doesn't become this big burden that you have to lug around for 5 or 10 or 30 years. It's something that you can work on shedding every week or every day when you need to, and not carry around, whether it's bad memories or trauma or PTSD, all of that stuff. So I think that's gone a long ways, is educating on that, and then seeing that the turnover in this area. I mean, there's really, I don't think there's a department that has full staffing around here, and many are very short. Seeing that we have to change this long term and take care of officers from the beginning and teach them how to do this stuff has gone a long ways.
Another question I had: how do you find attendances at the debriefings?
What was that again, Matt?
How do you find attendances at the debriefings? How in a given incident, a given critical incident, do you find that the turnout for a debriefing is high, is low, or it fluctuates?
I'll say it fluctuates. And I honestly, to a point, I attribute this to some of the repeated things that we're doing, departments that we're doing. Obviously we debrief an incident and everybody reacts to it differently. I think that at this point we've gotten the word out on how to do some of these coping skills enough that it's shown beneficial. But I mean, we've had debriefs, like I said, we've had up to 70 people that we had to split into 4 groups. There are many debriefs that, like we said, we include fire, rescue, dispatchers, so I would say in a critical incident around here, our average would probably be in the 10, 12 range for debriefs. And we do try to keep them not too much more than that, or we try to split them up.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's a hard thing to gauge, but I would say good turnout based on how closely some of these things work. And keep in mind, like I said, there aren't a lot of officers around here. So if I as a deputy have a child death or something like that that's serious, it's probably going to be me and a detective and maybe a sergeant or something. So that doesn't impact a lot of people. It doesn't all like a whole team shows up. We pretty much handle whatever we take. So then you start including, a couple rescue people, a dispatcher that dealt with it and tried to walk someone through CPR or something. So, I would say, the 10, 12 range is probably average for a debrief.
And one of the reasons why I asked is because, and those of you who are part of the team that are listening may be encountering the same thing too, is when we had a debriefing coming up for a critical incident, and I would reach out to the officers that were involved. So if it were, let's just say it was a child death, then the initial responding officers I would keep as a cohort. I would keep as one solid group. And maybe those who came after the fact, or the detectives who were investigating the case, they would make up a separate group. And what I would find is that if in reaching out to officers, they would say, no, I'm good, I'm all set. Or they may say, yeah, I'll be there. But it wasn't uncommon to hear, nah, I think I'm good, I'm all set. And it wasn't until I started to change the approach that I started to notice a benefit, which was it may not be about you. You may actually be all set. In many cases, the officer is going to be okay. Not every critical incident leads to a struggle for every officer on scene. And I would say, you're okay, but there could be somebody in that group that's going to benefit from your presence. In not being there, you sort of deprive them of that ability to learn from you, or to build some resiliency or thrive beyond the incident. And I noticed then that it impacted the attendance at that point. You get a little more buy-in, because one is cops. If you think you're helping somebody, you're more apt to be a part of it. Whereas if you think this is about your own well-being, we tend to be like, I'm fine, I'm good. No, I don't need it. But if you think your presence is going to help somebody, I noticed then that we were more likely to get a better response.
I would agree 100% with that. And you try to sell that under you're trying to help someone. I use myself as an example. For my shooting, I had the radio traffic, and that's all I knew. At my debriefing, 3 dispatchers were there. They were all on the line with other people who were describing what was going on at the same time. That was all information that I wouldn't have got, because in Maine, the police shooting report didn't come out for 3 years. Figure that. So that was all information I would have to wait that long for. And so just hearing that at that debrief for me, and I relay this all the time, was so instrumental to me dealing and processing with stuff that I heard. The other thing I was going to say for us, we try to separate, and I talked about that a little bit. We try to separate people. Our motto is kind of like do no harm. You don't want to add trauma to people that's not there. But at the same time, try to balance that with we're all big boys and girls. And you might have something that might help somebody put a piece together. So try to balance that with who was there, how close they were in contact, and what people can handle.
The last point I just wanted to highlight from what you said, and then again, if anybody has any questions, please jump in and ask away to Bob. But you had mentioned the importance of having peer support at the command level, and I think traditionally that was something that was overlooked. And when you're dealing with these critical incidents, ultimately the top decision making as far as the allocation of resources, as far as handling of the incident, anything tied to PIO or official statements coming out, that tends to fall to the higher levels within the department. And oftentimes they don't have a resource to reach out to. And everybody, we all start at the patrol level and carry up. So by the time you start to hit those command levels, you've got years behind you of stuff maybe building up. And like, as you were saying, and when you and I were initially talking as well, these things build up. And if you don't have an appropriate release or a way of sort of venting these incidents off, it can build up, and then you can hit that point. We've seen it within officers within our career where one little thing kind of sets them off or derails them, and then you're trying to do then it becomes reactionary instead of proactive to the approach. So building something in place for the administration, because administration's not going to say anything. The command's not going to say anything in a debriefing with younger officers there. And younger officers are going to be reluctant to say anything with command there. It works both ways. Yeah. So the fact that you've incorporated that and recognize it, I think makes your program stronger. And for anybody else listening on this training, I think incorporating that into your peer support program definitely adds an element that makes it overall stronger, and it helps with the buy-in, because now you have decision makers who recognize the benefits and see the benefits firsthand of having this resource.
Yeah, we had a chief in York County, in the county that took the reins on that and building up that program. They give assistance throughout the state. Obviously, it's a smaller group statewide of administrators, but it's an amazing resource to have, because when I do an assessment, I'm speaking with a point of contact that's 99% of the time administration. And several times I've had them say, you know what, I'm really struggling with this too. And now I can give them that number and I can pass them on to that chief. They can set up a debrief if they need it. They can set up a one-on-one. It's a great resource, and it's actually been used more than I thought it would be, just from me talking with the administrators that I use as point of contact.
Great. Any other questions for Bob? And Bob, I have some contact information which I'll put up on the screen from your team for people to reach out to in the area. But any other questions? Kendra, go ahead.
I was wondering, with your clinicians, do they have experience in dealing with law enforcement officers or military or anything like that?
Yes. So the main one that I was talking about that's doing a lot of training, she's actually former military. She was taught at the SEER school. Like, she's taken this wholeheartedly and embraced it. She's had law enforcement that she's dealt with privately, that from a clinician or psychologist point of view before the team, and some of those people are now on the team. So she had that prior law enforcement. I think everyone that we have on the team has law enforcement contact, either clients or that they're working with PD. Two of our clinicians are embedded at local police departments. I actually have 2 requests from other clinicians or psychologists that I have to vet to get on the team. So they're like coming to me at this point and asking to be on the team, which is an awesome place to be, as opposed to getting down on your knees and begging for it. So yeah, so to answer your question, they all have some form of law enforcement experience, whether their clientele are law enforcement or family members or military experience.
but they don't have, like, some of them aren't prior law enforcement turned clinicians or military turned clinicians?
No, just the one is military trained, but no, there's no one that's an actual, an actual police officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rob, you didn't, wasn't sure if you said anything. I kind of got kicked offline for a few minutes. Any of your officers CIT trained?
I believe everyone in Maine, it's a requirement to be CIT trained. So I believe everyone is.
I would, I'd love to pick your brain sometime after the meeting.
Sure.
Bob, can you see the contact information on the screen for your team?
I can, yes.
Okay. So if those of you who have access to a computer, if you want to take a snapshot, I will send the PowerPoint out after today's training as well, so you'll have access to it that way as to follow up on. But Bob's information is there if you'd like to reach out to him, talk to him more about the development of his team, and sort of how you get something going, especially when you have limited resources. Bob and I've worked with the Lemois grant as well. John Dilibert is about to speak. He's familiar with the Lemois grant. It is a great grant if you're looking for funding to start a team in the future. I personally did not find it extremely difficult to work with the COPS office for that grant. Our point of contact was very easy to work with, gave us the information that we needed. We could call up, bounce questions off of her that we had when we were developing sort of the criteria for the grant. So the initial grant we had, we did a modification to it with a goal of developing a standardized peer support training program within the state of Connecticut that would ultimately be overseen by our Post Academy. In the end, though, Post did not standardize the training. There is a standard model being implemented within the state of Connecticut. It's just not currently being overseen by Post. However, working with the COPS office to make those modifications, I personally found them very easy to work with. Bob, did you have direct contact with your Lemois point of contact, or was that really through Caitlin?
No, it would be through Hannah, but no,
Hannah.
we had direct contact and we had quarterly meetings. So anything that came up, we would meet with them quarterly. We'd bring up any issues we had, anything we wanted to try, anything we wanted to do. And same experience as you had, just more than willing to help and more than willing to try to facilitate what we were trying to do. So that was actually a great experience. I didn't write the grant. Hannah wrote the grant, but the after part of it, us dealing with it, getting funds, reallocating funds was easy.
Great. Any other questions before we move on to our next presenter? Bob, I want to thank you so much for coming on and for being a part of this. You're welcome to stay on. Jim Miller really wants to connect with you, so I'll actually connect with both of you by email after today's meeting. And if anybody else wants to connect up with Bob, at the end, I understand the QR code was not working. I've put a new QR code which will be available at the end. If you're interested in contacting with Bob, you can put a message in the section on suggestions and ideas, and I'll make sure to connect everybody by email. So your phone's not ringing off the hook, Bob, but you can navigate those who are interested in touching base with you. So
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys letting me talk to you. I appreciate you sharing this. And again, as you said, anybody have a question, anybody needs to talk through this, I guess don't replicate the work if you don't have to. We have a policy you can work off or look and use, whether it's the assessment form or the debrief forms we use. It's all stuff that I would have loved to have handed to me at the beginning of when I started this. So yeah, I'm more than willing to help and obviously passionate about this. So feel free to contact me anytime.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right. Our next presentation comes from John Dilibert out in Idaho. So John and I have been we've been working. We've done a couple presentations. We just recently did We Back Blue, which was a virtual training. John and I took part in that and gave a presentation. So what I'd like to convey to the group is we have a number of presentations that have built up over the last year. If you're looking to do a presentation in your community, you're looking to do a presentation for your department, I encourage you to reach out because we've developed these. You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to come up with it on your own. We've got these. I can email you the links to them. You can build off of those. And then, the format has already been approved by the NLEOMF organization. So we're building off of a solid foundation, which already has the approval from the memorial. So again, if you're looking to do a presentation, but just building one seemed a bit overwhelming or you just didn't have the time, we now have a number of presentations as well as roll call trainings available that we can roll out to you. Just all you have to do is ask, and I can make sure I can get that out to you. With that being said, I'm going to turn this part of the program over to John. Thank you. And John, I'll move the slides along for you if you need.
All right, whatever works. Welcome. Happy to be here, and folks, and hi from Idaho, enjoying fall weather and all that. So just a little thing we'll talk about today as we get into the project of just traffic safety. What Matt and I have been doing also is we do put the code up at the beginning and the end of whatever presentation we do. I wrote that into the chat because sometimes we get people that, they come in late or they leave early. So you want to capture everybody you can when you're doing a presentation. And of course, the presentations we have, even though they've been approved and all that, sometimes I may move the slides around and take them a little out of order. It kind of works for whatever the audience that I'm speaking to. So what I want to talk about today is officer traffic safety. If you remember, Matt was looking us to put in some roll call training and what have you. And I went down just officer and traffic safety because, when you look at the numbers and you look at where we're going, we're still having officers lose their lives for some stuff that maybe we can improve upon. What I'm going to talk about today is most of you already know. You may learn something that is not trained in your region or you haven't thought about it. I know teaching with the NTOA, the National Tactical Officers Association, and in California, sometimes you see stuff on the East Coast that's different than the West Coast or vice versa. It's all good information. And if you see something that's glaring or you got a question or you want to throw in, please do that. Let's all learn from it and get it back and reduce the numbers of what's going on there. All right, Matt, so let's get into it. All right, so this is the numbers I got straight off our website. And I'm also looking at 2023. But, at the end of the day, 226 folks have died in the line of duty last year. Traffic assaults are the leaders of our cause of death. And unfortunately, 64 officers were shot and killed in 2022. All right. Most of those are occurring during traffic stops and ambushes, which include a lot of responses to domestic violence calls. That's a different animal I can get into at another time. Looking at the beginning of 2023, the first 6 months, and if you've ever want to look at the report that comes out, it is on the website. We are down. We went from 33 during the same time frame, about January through June. We're down to 25. That is a good thing. Unfortunately, the second half of this year is starting to come back up. So we need to talk a little bit about what we can do to do that better. But at the end of the day, what you're thinking about is officer safety is always situational awareness, and trying to place yourself in a position of advantage throughout your shift, wherever you go, whatever you're trying to do. And we all know sometimes the dragon wins despite our best efforts. All right. But, you know, and we can't hide behind a shield the whole time, but it's just something to think about. So I'm going to go through some bullet points. This will actually be on the website. Matt will shoot out the PowerPoint, but I do have what I call the officer toolbox that will be posted later on. So Matt, if you've never really navigated the website, I encourage you to do that. If you get into our website and get into the officer safety and wellness tab, it opens up these 4 categories. There is a plethora of presentations, handouts, and what have you in there that you can take back to your agencies, pass them out into your regions or what have you, and get the word out. But I was shocked at how much is in there. And some go back a couple years. Some go back, you know, even like 8, 9, 10 years, but it's still relevant today. And maybe you can look at it and say, hey, what if we tweak this one? Slide, please. Okay, so let's just talk about the safety reminders about any traffic stop. Being a guy who also ran part of a dispatch center, you know, they want to know one good thing. Give me a good location, a description of where you're stopping at, such as an intersection, place of business, maybe the closest mile post marker or a highway exit. You've got to give them a little better details, because what happens when we radio something out, usually somebody else, another copper is monitoring that too and knows maybe I should start heading that direction. So it's not just always about the dispatchers, but it's also about everybody else listening to the radio, like knowing where we're at and where we need to get to. The second one, are we really aware where our closest backup officer is? Is it better to follow that traffic violator until a second unit is with you? Something to think about. I know some people work in rural areas. I went from Los Angeles, you know, a very highly density place, lots of streets, lots of corners and things like that, to up in Idaho where it's part city and part rural. So I understand you're not going to know everything, but we have mobile digital computers now. And a lot of folks can monitor each other through the AVL. So take a look what's going on, broadcast it right, and then somebody say, hey, give me a couple minutes, I can get in there with you. Maybe that works for you. Something to think about. Other thing, number 3, do we make the best use of our patrol car spotlights, our takedown lights to light up a violator's car? There's a lot of options with all these things that they will sell you on the light bar and the spotlights, but do we use them right? Do we have the best chance to use them? Do we light up the back of that thing so, you know, you can walk in there a little bit with a little blind light to the violator, but put you in a better position on that approach? Are you able to pick the place of the stop rather than the most convenient? And I know a lot of times the violator just pulls over. The lights come on and they just pull over. Is that the time where maybe you get on the PA and have them move up to a better lighted location, maybe a better spot that works for you in terms of not placing you or the violator in a bad position should you have to get them out of the car or what have you? I have always done this. As I'm walking up on the violator's car, if I see them looking in the mirror, especially the side view mirror, I tell them to look forward. I immediately command it. It's that command presence taking charge of the stop. And I tell them, keep looking forward until I get up there. I'm curious of how many people are aware of the trunk or the tail light tap. This works in certain areas of the country. I don't know if everybody does it. Some people were taught, you know, they tap on the trunk or the hatch to make sure nobody's going to pop out there, right? Some people also tap the tail light. And one of the reasons for that is you're leaving your fingerprints on the back of that car if you're not wearing gloves. So let's say you are shot, you are down, suspect vehicle is gone, all right? We don't have a good description, but you know, maybe a color and a make and not a plate. So other deputies, other officers, somewhere down the line, if they find it parked abandoned, is this the right car? What they may want to be able to do is your CSI folks know where to print. They pick up your prints in the back of the car, they know that's the violator's car. That's worked. We've done that in a lot of different spots. Don't know if we do that in your area. Some people will do this on tinted windows. Do you ask the driver to turn on the interior lights if the car has them? It's a thought. It's something to think about. It works good sometimes for some people. You get a better chance to look in there instead of just using your flashlight all the time. It's all about options. And that way, if they're reaching into the glove compartment, then, you know, the rest of the car is lit. but then you can focus your look with your light into that glove compartment. Slide for me, Matt. Walking up to the car. Are we paying attention if the car door is ajar on the left side, or someone could come out of the back seat, launch an attack, or maybe as you're halfway in that dead space, that bad zone between the front of your car and the window, or the driver's window, pops out and then the fight is on? Are we looking at that? If you see that ajar, then you command them to close it, or maybe you step back from behind your car until that gets done before you come back forward, and don't put yourself in that position. Are we aware if the driver or the passenger is trying to distract you instead of watching their hands? You know, they could be fumbling something on purpose. They could be saying, I've got my cell phone on, so somebody's monitoring us or whatever. And you're drawing attention to the cell phone, but not their left hand or not their right hand. Something to think about. It happens a lot. There's always a distraction thing. And for those of you who work in some of the inner city areas, you know what I'm talking about, dealing with gang members or whatever. You pull a car over with 2 or 3 people. That is part of the game, because they still could be stashing a gun. They still could be stashing dope or what have you. How many agencies have deputies or officers that sit in the patrol car driver's seat to run someone or right the sight because it's cold or hot outside? Now, I understand that happens, but can you effectively get out of that car and get yourself into a gunfight to defend yourself at any time? Sometimes we get so focused on that MDC because we're by ourselves, and that's how we got to do business, that we don't have, the big picture of what's happening. I am a big proponent of moving over to the driver, to the passenger side, opening up the door, standing there and working off the computer or that seat, or also standing there and writing a sight. A lot of times you have to type it out now. I know that, but think about those options. There are some agencies, like my former agency in LA, we actually have ballistic doors on the patrol units. So when we get behind that, we have a little more shielding to go. You still can hide your legs. All right, there's options to do that. And we learn how to shoot from that position if we had to. Something to think about. Other than your patrol kill, when you're standing out there and you're looking around or getting ready to pull somebody over, have you looked at what your other options are for cover? Many times, suspect just pops out of the car and the fight is onto the car, the patrol car itself. What are your options? Think about the old days of those big mailboxes. Think about telephone poles. Yes, they're kind of wide and they do absorb some rounds. Think about that. Where can I go? Is there a Jersey barrier? Is there a K-rail? What are my options? Situational awareness. If I've got to retreat, what can I get to? Sometimes I even write the ticket, not even near the car. I actually go behind something else, to the right, down a little bit or whatever. I keep moving. It drives a driver crazy because they can't always find me. Big question. How do we handle walking back up to the violator's car with a sight book and a flashlight? I mean, what do? You got to keep your gun hand open, but sometimes you see folks get a little too comfortable and they got both hands full with anything that they can do except, draw a weapon. Think about that. Matt, let's switch one more. All right, I want to talk a little bit about traffic-related crashes. Here's the numbers of 2022. 40 officers lost their lives due to traffic-related crashes. All right, and that was an increase from 2021. Now, it's gone down at the beginning of 2023, the first 6 months. We had 11, which is a great number to have. 5 were auto crashes, running through an intersection and getting struck by somebody else, or maybe we're doing it running code. 3 were single vehicle crashes. We always read the story about the officer driving off a rain slick highway and gets killed. Why are we doing that? How is that happening? We also had 1 motorcycle officer. So we need to talk a little bit about that. But at the end of the day, what happens? These crashes are usually too often caused by an officer's overconfidence in their driving skills or conditions. Now, we all were younger. We all did that, right? We remember what it's like to put our foot, and I'm going to age myself, in the carburetor, right? And that nice sound of that, 350 kicking off. But we're still losing people because we think we were better than we were. And when you get overconfident, you're going to push it 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour over faster of the speed limit, or what works, right? And we hit that one spot we didn't expect, and next thing you know, we're sliding off, hitting a tree or what have you. We have to get better at driving. We all know there is that one officer. If you were to put everybody inside your station and have a training session, say, okay, write me a name down of the worst driver you have in your agency. More times than not, you're probably going to get the same 2 or 3 folks, right? We all know those guys. We all know who they are, right? And we probably have this thing where, well, that's a sergeant's job. That's a lieutenant's job. That's a captain's job. It is all our jobs to really have a crucial conversation with a peer who's known for that. Slow it down, because I don't want to go to your funeral. I don't want to be the one that has to tell your family what happened. We need to do that. We are good at cops at pulling people over and telling them they're driving like knuckleheads. But we have to do that with our own peers. We have to save them from themselves at times. So let's get into some of the information on how to do better than this. Slide, please. Folks, you've seen this one. That car wrapped around a telephone pole or a tree. But number one thing we know this, buckle up. You can always unfasten it within a block of your stop. All right. I know everybody says this, I got to get out in an emergency. I got to be ready to go. I was one of those guys, but I also know now there are guys that will buckle the seatbelt behind them and they still drive clean. Why did they do that? Because the computers in your car now will track how fast you were going, if you were buckled, and what have you. They can download it. Any agency that has an accident involving a deputy or an officer, you most likely have the team that does the investigation downloading that car. Guys can find out about that. But if that's the policy, is buckle up, they need to buckle up. I usually wind up doing about half block out. I'm already getting out of that seatbelt, shift my shoulder out, and I am clear. I am ready to go. Drives my wife crazy. I'll start just pulling in the market lot and I'm already out, unbuckled. It's just a habit, but you can do it. Avoid the use of cell phones so you're not distracted. We're already distracted enough with the MDC going on, right? But guys are still on a cell phone, and there are state laws in a lot of states, right, that says that you can't have a cell phone in your hand while you're driving. I don't know where cops are exempt from that, except maybe emergencies, and maybe your agency will do that, but there are laws for that. And if, in a marked car, you get caught doing that, people start complaining to the boss about, I saw your deputy, I saw your officer doing that. But the problem is we're doing this and we're going to crash. Rear end a car or what have you. A lot of our vehicles don't have it. So if you need to call someone, get on the Bluetooth, set that up. Know the geography of your area of assignment. That way, when you're rolling around, you don't have to keep looking at the MDC map of where I'm going, where I'm going, where I'm going. Now, some of these MDCs, you hit the button, map it for you, and you're going to a hot call. Well, that little icon tracking your car is never going to go as fast as you were going. So look into that thing. You're gonna see the icon and pass the street before you think that's where you're going to go. So you really need to have situational awareness of where we're working. I grew up, I was taught, I had to learn the street without looking at a computer. In fact, we didn't have them. I knew where the 100 blocks were. I knew where the brakes were, going over railroad tracks or what have you. But we got away from that. How many of the training officers are teaching their rookies in the car and say, today, we are not using the computer, and shut it down. Find your way how to handle business, because when a system crashes, can we still do that? Motorcycle officers, they kill themselves on these lovely two-wheel things because sometimes they get themselves in a pursuit. Does your policy in your agency say that if a motor officer is in a pursuit, he's got to give that away to a four-wheel patrol vehicle as soon as possible? It is better for them to be in second place than be in the lead. I know they enjoy driving those things hard, and there's some great riders out there, but they have less to protect them. And they only got two wheels to keep down attached to the ground as opposed to four. Make sure your policy has something like that in it. For those of you folks that have been through one of these things and helicoptered your car, through an intersection or on a bridge, roads wet or icy, bridges always freeze before roadways. Pay attention to that. know that can happen. Make sure we're teaching that. And yes, four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive vehicles still slide on ice. All right. It may be four-wheel drive, which is great for snow, but it has nothing to do with stopping unless you've got better tires that grip, soft rubber ones, which tonight I am switching my tires out up here to my winter tires on the one car, but they slide. So having a four-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive does not mean that you're not going to slide. You still have to be able to drive safe, smart, and be able to grip. How many agencies have this? Because this happens. Sometimes people they do it on purpose for whatever reason, or they accidentally do it. Never disengage the vehicle stability or the traction control. Happens. A lot of agencies have had crashes where somehow this has gone sideways on them. They don't know what happened. They realize it was disengaged. And next thing you know, the car is off the sideways, or it's flipping through an intersection or what have you. Check on that, folks. Check that with your fleet guys. They really appreciate it when we talk to them about the car and, taking steps to prevent accidents and damage on a car and wear and tear. Matt, another slide. All right. So unless you're in a pursuit, are we slowing or stopping at intersections with traffic when running code 3? We know we're going through the big intersection, but instead of going Mach 1, we really need to slow it down and pick our way through, kind of like a kayaker on the river. You're picking your way through the intersection. Very important to do. You'll avoid a lot of stuff. People, they don't hear you. And when you're working your way through, they realize, oh, that's a police car coming. They may yield, but it's safer to do that. Going through an intersection or getting ready to make a turn, pedestrians, bicyclists, skateboarders, strollers, motorized scooters, all of those come off the sidewalk. They just see the walk sign and they start going. They're going to lose the battle against you. All right. But do they have the right of way or not? Pay attention to that. You get those surprises because Uncle Murphy shows up when it seems like when I'm going to the hot call, there's the one guy that wasn't paying attention. He's going to be in that intersection and we're going to hit him. Turning corners on residential streets, you may have to require, that quick stop short thing. So as you're coming around, be ready because somebody else could be popping out. Or in some aspects, the crooks will get in a pursuit. They will start taking you down a left or right, a left or right. And then they will turn the corner, stop short. You come around the corner and they will light you up. All right. It's guns a-blazing. That has happened. We have lost good cops for that. I think there's a chief in Wisconsin that got murdered on that. Don't pass other units rolling code and certainly avoid passing on the right. If at all, if you can really do it, you have to avoid it. Sometimes you're forced to, but pass it on the right. We tell everybody what happens. Rolling code, cop coming up behind him, get to the right, get to the right. Well, how many times do we have another cop getting on the right where the guy has no place to go? We're setting ourselves up for failure. We all know about loose gravel on roadway shoulders. If you get a little sideways on that, then you're going to spin the car and we're going to tumble. Happens all the time on the highways. If I talk about driving in blind spots, there's the A pillar on the windshield. The B pillar is behind the passenger door. The C pillar is to the rear near the trunk lid. Those are those blind spots, the B and C pillars. Try to avoid driving in those spots because so people will not be able to see you. All right, that happens. Sirens today, we all know this, they never hear us. They don't hear it, right? Cars are built to be more sound deafening than ever. People have their cell phone on because they're talking while they're driving. People have the radio on. They do not hear. Now, my agency went to a lot of rumblers up here, which have really been working. It's that great sound. It kind of rumbles underneath the car coming up on somebody. They hear it. Intersections clear a little bit better. It's an option to take a look at. But, just remember, sirens don't go. And I know we get frustrated. I've been behind this guy forever. He's not leaving. He's not giving me the right of way. Just know that happens. So whether you have to go to a different type of hit the horn and go from, one type of siren to another, look at options. How many of you have the new Tahoe and are aware that, if you got to put your car in park, all right, and set the parking brake before you exit? We've all done this, right? The car keeps rolling away as we get out, right? We've seen the videos, but the new Tahoe has a way of, if you're bailing out of the car at any point, like 5 miles an hour okay, it automatically throws the car in park. All right. That's a surprise to some people, but it's a safety thing they put in. And so that is a good thing. You may want to look at it, but if you're getting a new fleet of Tahoes, see if that's on board and make sure your driver training team is aware of that and teach that to everybody, because you'll get a little surprise. But at the end of the day, again, to be safe, to go home, let's do the right thing. Set the parking brake. All right. Matt, one more slide. Here's a couple safety products that are out there. Some you're aware of and why we use them and should. One of the great things is the magnetic radio mic holder. My old shop in LA didn't have it, and we try to find the hook all the time on the dash or whatever. But this magnet is on the back of the mic, and it's a really hard magnet. Let's see, on the deck lid, or in between the MDC and what have you. So if you just get the mic anywhere near it, it automatically clomps onto it and draws it to it. What I like about it is I can immediately find it in the same spot every time. It is secure. I don't have to keep looking. I can drive and look, and I'm clicked onto it. Some people prefer to just carry, the mic up here, let's say on their radio. That works too. LED road flares are really good. They don't start fires. If you're in some rural areas or, in the mountains, they're high intensity. They last a long time. They have that nice beacon flashlight, work strobe, that helps. Every agency should have safety vests that are reflective or LED. You'll see the LED ones that people jog in or whatever, issued to all their folks. That way, if you're out at a traffic scene, directing traffic, you have some sort of protection out there. Let's get those on instead of just wearing that dark jacket or, or something in the middle of the night, reflective or LED. There's switches now. So if you're driving by yourself, the remote spotlight switch, it will automatically activate the passenger side. So if you want to set that up at the beginning of your shift, that way, every time you pull over, you hit the button on your way out, it lights it up, makes the suspect sometimes think there's a second deputy or officer there. Some really quality earpieces that are out. I didn't use it as much, even as I got ready to retire. I know it's great because the crook's not hearing all the radio traffic or hearing if you're running somebody or the kickback that comes back saying, he's a felon or what have you. Very successful. And, the good thing about it is you can multitask. You don't always have to keep looking down to your radio to reach it, but you're hearing everything in your right or left ear. Great thing to have. They're cheap. They work on all those Motorola's and whatever. You can find a lot of different price points, but they're quality. Flashlight cones. All right. We've all have the directing traffic. Sometimes those cones work pretty good. People see red instead of just getting a beam of light in their eyes. There's a new product out you've seen in a few spots. I don't know if some of you have it. It's a shoulder light, sits up here on your epaulette or whatever. That's a great thing. So if you're writing a ticket, you can turn that on instead of you holding the old fashioned way where I put my flashlight here under my armpit and was writing. Those work. They're also good, like if you're working a perimeter or, you're in a foot pursuit somehow, you take off running and you've got the guy, you tackle him or what have you, and guys are trying to find where you're at. They can pick up that light down the block and say, okay, there he is. All right. They come in different colors. They are excellent as a former bike patrol officer to have that when I'm on a traffic stop somewhere. I can be found a lot quicker because, bicycle's small and me standing on the street small, but I can have another backup officer find me a little bit quicker. So we use those on the bikes. And there are ways to disengage the stability switch, all right, on those cars. So your maintenance yard, your fleet guys, they know how to do that so it can never come off. It's not a bad thing. Something to think about. Matt, one more. All right. Any questions or any thoughts? Anything I've talked totally out of school on, or some other suggestion that is something that works for you folks that we want to get out? Okay, Matt, let's go to that last slide. So I'll run everybody by this one.
Hey, JD.
Yeah, go ahead, Dale.
Dale here. That item you were talking about is called the Guardian. I bought one for my son. It's a really durable product.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of ones. I did not know what the name was. Great product, and you can get it online. It's Guardian. Thank you for writing it. I'll write that one down and just look it up. What was the price point on that? Do you know?
It was $100. That
Yeah.
included the thing that attach it to your epaulet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some people like them, some people don't. But it's an option. And it's certainly also if you're going out and working maybe a scene, it's nice to have that out there too, so people kind of see an extra light.
Well, it's got a feature on it too, where if you're doing your paperwork and it's dark out, you can flip the right light to red from white.
Yes, I used to have a flashlight lens or a pen. It was that lit up like that too when I was writing a site. That was kind of cool. So
yeah, it's a good tool.
Yeah, that's a good one we didn't have back when we started, but I appreciate it.
Yep.
So the slide you're going to see here, this is, first of all, y'all know Mission Square is the retirement system that is a big supporter, sponsor of our Memorial Fund. And what they've asked, because we're in contract with them, is that we want to add this slide to each one of our presentations, and get their name out there for what they do here. So it came out as just basically letting us know, everybody who's got a presentation, do it on behalf of us. Let's put this out there. Matt, did I cover all that, or you want to jump in?
There you go. Nope, you're good. Excellent.
Yeah, so if you need this slide, folks, Matt put it out. I think it may have come out in the pitch deck, but you can capture this slide and slide it into all your stuff, and just put it in at the beginning. I put it at the end here just so we all had it and we got to see it. Remind me. All right. And I think that's all I got, right, Matt?
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you. And I'm gonna wrap up by going over a few things to bring everybody up to speed. And again, at the end of my talking points, there's going to be the QR code. I tested it while our presenters were speaking and was able to get into it. So the first one, if you weren't able to get in on the first one, this final one that'll come at the end for the QR code, you'll be able to access. Put down your name, suggestions, ideas you have. And if you have any questions for follow-up, please put those in there too. I'll follow up and again, connect you with Bob if you're looking for more information on how he did his peer support program. So this is John's information. If you want John's information, take a quick screenshot of it. I'll give you a moment before I move on to my my talking points. Okay. So a couple of upcoming initiatives. The steering committee met about 2 weeks ago, and we were looking at a number of different things. So presentations and roll call trainings. Members of the steering committee put together roll call trainings that are talking points on various topics that we can disseminate out to you. The purpose of roll call trainings is to get in front of the officers you work with. This is really key for those who are still active and sworn. Getting out there in front of roll call, helping to disseminate the information from our officer safety and wellness pillar out to the greater law enforcement community. And I'm going to reiterate on presentations. We have a number of presentations. So if you're looking to get in front of a group, we have a presentation for you. I'd like you to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to send that over to you. You will get a copy of today's presentation as well that you can always use as a template for building off of. As far as some fundraising ideas that we had, the steering committee had met and looked at two really big ideas. The first being an event either centered around some type of sports activity, but something that could be rolled out nationwide that we could pull in various regions of the country together as sort of one large event within the memorial. The second idea that we had was some type of event that brought in either a country music star or some entertainer and build off of that. So one of our ambassadors, a gentleman by the name of Ben Bolton, retired sergeant out of Alexandria, Virginia, had connected us with an events promoter out his way. And we had been in some early discussions about doing something for the fall of 2024 that would include a live entertainment act set against like a fair type of setting, if you will, with food and vendors there. And a portion of the sales come back to various organizations, one of them being the memorial. So we've got those two ideas in the hopper that we're really looking to build upon. Now that the steering committee has met, we put these ideas out, we sort of vetted through the ones that we like. We're now in discussions with the memorial. That's the way that process works. National Police Week is going to be coming up pretty quick. The steering committee had also put together sort of an insider's book along with several members of our ambassadors program, an insider's guide, if you will, for coming into DC for Police Week. Some things that are good to know that you just may not find on the website or on the various websites that are out there. So our ambassadors come from a number of backgrounds. We have ambassadors tied with the FOP, ambassadors tied with cops, ambassadors that have been part of the memorial program for quite some time. Using that collective experience, we've put together this booklet to really help, if you're coming into DC, to help navigate kind of around the city, things to do, places to go. The big one is where to park. That's easy to answer. There really is no place to park downtown. If you've been down to Police Week, it gets incredibly busy down there. And usually parking on the outskirts, if that's where you happen to be, and taking the metro in tends to work best. But we are going to be putting that book out. All ambassadors will have access to that. We'll put that out as we get closer to January 1st. And then we're looking at making that available too to our honor guard teams who are coming into DC to take part in our candlelight vigil or stand watch for the fallen. Another element that we have been in discussion with our chapters, and I'm going to ask you to consider if you would like to head up a chapter within your area. So as the program grows, we were looking at doing it regional, but we're looking more towards the chapter designation because a number of law enforcement organizations use chapters. It is a concept that's very well known to police officers. It's a term that's very well known by police officers and resonates with police officers. If you'd be interested in spearheading a chapter within your area, as part of a chapter, as the chapter president, if you will, you would be responsible for connecting with those under your chapter, if you will, disseminating information, staying in touch, contacting, developing any initiatives out your way. And by breaking the group down into smaller chapters like that, we feel that it's easier to maintain that one-to-one communication with each other. So if that's something that you're interested in as this grows out of the steering committee, I encourage you to reach out through the QR code there, and I'll make note of that. I am heading to IACP. We've got a couple ambassadors that are heading to IACP as well next week in San Diego. If you are indeed going to the IACP this coming weekend, we're going to have a booth there. I don't have the location on the floor as to where the memorial booth would be, but I will be there for all 3 days. I'll be there Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I encourage you to stop by, say hi. It's always great to connect with people in person. The end of year activity report. So you're going to be seeing in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be getting an email from me for the end of year activity report. Everything that you've done over the course of the year goes on there, whether it be developing trainings, presenting, roll call trainings, any fundraising initiatives, attending meetings, quarterly meetings, if you're part of a steering committee, or our presentations or our social media committee. It's a way to document the various things that our ambassadors are doing throughout the country, and it's a way for us to gauge the effectiveness of the program to see what's being done out there in the field. That end of year activity report is also used to look at candidates for Ambassador Impact Award. So the Ambassador Impact Award is given out during National Police Weekend. However, the recipient of the Ambassador Impact Award does get to read the names on the dais during the candlelight vigil, which is a huge honor. So you get to read the names on the dais during Police Week, and then there is there's a formal recognition during National Police Weekend. Bill Swank from one of our ambassadors, a longtime member of the Memorial Ambassador Program back in its early days, is currently still an active member. Bill was the recipient this past Police Weekend of the Ambassador Impact Award. Very proud to work with Bill, and he's really been a guide, and since I came onto the program, someone to reach out to, and he well deserving of the award. We have a number of ambassadors as well who over this past year have really been putting their best foot forward to help grow the program. So I am really encouraged by the work that we're seeing, and looking forward to selecting for next year's Ambassador Impact Award. But Bill will be with us in 2024 on the dais, reading names of the fallen. And then our February training, we're going to be doing our February training, our quarterly training is going to focus on Police Week, and we're building out that program right now for you. That is really going to focus on the various aspects and things going on during Police Week to get everybody up to speed if you are going to be going, as well as, and I encourage you, if you're not going, but an honor guard team from your department is going, you may want to have a member join you during that training. It's a good place to ask some questions, to vet out some things, but it will also bring people up to speed as we lead into Police Week. With that being said, I have nothing further for everybody. This is the Ambassador Quarterly Training sign-in. As you're scanning this and filling this out, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask. I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
Hey, I just got back on. I will give you a call as soon as this is over to get the final part of it.
Sure. If nobody has any questions, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to join us and be a part of this today. I look forward again to working with everybody. And for those that I'll have the opportunity to see down at IACP, please make sure to stop over to say hi. And hopefully we can carve out some time to spend together when the floor show is over at the end of the day. So with that being said, thank you all. I appreciate everybody being a part of this and being here today. And have a great week, great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everybody, for the presentation.
Thank you all.
Stay safe.
Take care.
I just wanted to be the last face you see. When are you heading out there?
I